Number 26, Theodore Roosevelt, Republican, 1901 to 1909, age 42, from New York. The Republicans' worst nightmare had come to pass. Theodore Roosevelt was no longer just a heartbeat from the presidency. He was the president. TR, as he liked to be called, was a complicated man, a mass of contradictions, and he could not be bullied. He was a conservative, yet he fought for reform. He was a hunter who started the conservation movement, a hawk on war who won the Nobel Peace Prize. Perhaps the only thing that can be easily understood about him is that he was an original.
TR never identified himself as a Republican. In fact, I've read a letter recently that's been unpublished that his uncle wrote and said what they don't understand about Teddy is that he's a Democrat, that he was both. He never thought in terms of pure party politics. He thought about what was right for the American people. And that's a great lesson for presidents to learn. You don't represent your party as much as you represent the people. If you do what's right for the most people, what you think's right, you're going to be a great president.
Teddy Roosevelt was the most exciting man you ever met. It didn't matter who you were. That's just what he was like. He was impossibly energetic. He was constantly doing things, constantly reading things, constantly thinking about things and talking about things.
What struck people about Theodore Roosevelt was just how much energy he had. He was a teetotaler, didn't drink alcohol, but drank a gallon of coffee a day. So he was wired all the time.
Roosevelt was one of these people who sucked the air out of every room that he was in. He exuded charisma in a way that required everybody to pay attention.
Theodore Roosevelt, without question, was the most electrifying politician of his generation.
Roosevelt was also a shrewd politician. He knew politics were driven by personality, and he used the sheer force of his personality to get what he wanted.
Every issue with Teddy Roosevelt is affected by his personality. I mean, maybe more than any president we have ever had, his personality infused his politics and either won him supporters or bitter enemies.
He believed in good and evil. He believed that a single individual could have a large impact on the course of affairs. He had this sense that there was room in national life, even in this modern industrial age, for the same kind of selfless heroism that he had read about in the hero stories of the past.
Roosevelt did not waste much time going after what he thought was America's greatest evil: too much power in the hands of corporate America.
When Roosevelt becomes president, it was a toss-up who the most powerful man in the country was. It might have been Theodore Roosevelt, the President of the United States, or it might have been J.P. Morgan, the most powerful financier in the country.
Roosevelt came to believe that the great industrialists in the United States did, in fact, wield too much power, and he decided that this should be curbed.
5 months into office, Roosevelt took J.P. Morgan head-on. He sued the tycoon's Northern Securities Corporation to halt its monopolization of the Western railways. The case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and in a close decision, the government was successful. Morgan's monopoly was crushed. As a result, Roosevelt gained a reputation as a trust buster, but in truth, he was a trust regulator.
His underlying view was that large size in industry is something that comes with the territory of the Industrial Revolution. We can't turn back the clock on that. However, we have to remind these corporate barons that the people, not the trusts, not the capitalist system, but the people control affairs in this country.
The thing that TR feared was that if he couldn't get corporate America to let a little steam out of the pot, it would blow up.
Lingering societal ills were bubbling over. There were no sanitation systems, highways, or social welfare. In New York, poor people starved. Across America, 1 child out of 5 worked in a factory, mine, or sweatshop. Conditions for laborers were miserable, particularly coal miners. So it was not a surprise when the anthracite coal miners went on strike in 1902. Management and labor were hopelessly deadlocked and winter was looming. Without coal, the entire Northeast would freeze. Fearing untold misery and riots, the president personally intervened.
Roosevelt took the view that the President of the United States was uniquely positioned to act on behalf of the American people. It's only the President who can see and who must see things in terms of the entire national interest. And when he saw what the coal strike threatened to do to America as a whole, he felt obliged to take action.
After threatening to nationalize the coal mines, Roosevelt brought the two sides together and forged a settlement that favored labor over management. The coal strike was over, and Roosevelt's first great domestic crisis was averted, much to the relief of the nation.
He never wanted to feel that one tycoon, one billionaire, could shut the whole railroad system down, or could knock out the entire coal industry. It would cripple America. He never wanted to see anybody have the power that could hurt the country.
Roosevelt's resolution of the strike was a crucial turning point in labor relations, paving the way to better working conditions. It would be one triumph in many of social and economic reforms that Roosevelt called his square deal. What Roosevelt had in mind for foreign policy, however, would be much more radical. While president, Theodore Roosevelt officially renamed the executive mansion the White House and added the West Wing.